more time. One more time. One more time. One more time.
Why do you keep saying one more time if it's not going to be one more time?
One more time. So we've got 10 claps.
10 claps. 10 claps
10
of those
booms!
cheeks.
Boom!
Boom!
Boom! Okay, give me 1 second.
What's up, everyone?
Are you gonna do that?
No.
Why not?
I don't want to do that.
Why not?
I'm not the guy.
What's up, guys?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dumb CreepCast.
All right, ready?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Dumb CreepCast, starring Jupiter and Azrael.
I don't like
Today, we're covering a sequel to one of the stories we read in our first episode.
Do you don't know what it's called? I'm a 99 operator. Yesterday, my
A 999 operator?
A 9... Wait.
What is this, Keir Starmer's UK?
I'm sorry. I'm a 911. I'm a 911 operator.
I'm a 911 operator. Yesterday, my coworker got a call from herself.
Ooh.
So, if you don't know, we recorded a previous episode. This is our second episode of Dumb CreepCast. We read the first part of the story in that first video. And today, we're gonna read parts 2 through 4.
Yeah, we two to four, I think.
2 to 4?
So I had a look afterwards. We like this story a lot. I had a look. This author has finished it. Seems to have pretty high ratings for r/no sleep. I'm not gonna lie.
Hell yeah.
r/no sleep is pretty hit or miss. What I'm thinking about or worried about is what I really like in horror is the sort of like the unknown element. And I thought that was really captured well in the first sort of chapter of this. And I wonder if like how they're gonna avoid the sort of like letdown of like the more they like let the audience know, like if that's gonna keep going.
The more they reveal.
Yeah,
Sure.
like I feel like that's a really common occurrence in most horror things. Like if it's a series like this, the further it goes on, it tends to go downhill a bit. But I looked in the next two chapters or whatever of this, they've got what are they called? I'm not a Redditor. I'm not very knowledgeable in the Redditor thing.
Posts.
No, what? No, the little things. What are they called? Like the little awards, whatever.
Awards.
They have. Oh. They have little
Thanks for
awards
the
at them.
gold, kind stranger.
They have the popcorn.
Oh my god! This man won a popcorn award!
Oh my, yeah!
Holy
yeah,
shit! Holy shit!
What a popcorn award.
By the way, we're in the middle of like a giant storm. There's like gale force winds going on outside, so if you hear that, just it's part of the atmosphere.
I've never experienced a red weather warning in Scotland. Like I've never had that mad alert that we got on our phone to be like beep beep, stay inside, and I'm never
Beep, beep,
stay
it's just
inside,
a
danger.
little R2D2 sound.
I've never had that before in my life, so this is like new to me. We don't really get adverse weather to this extent.
Back home in Joe Biden's America, I got those all the damn time.
Joe Biden's America?
Joe Biden's America.
Wow.
That's the America I left.
Oh my god. Amazing.
Do you want to kind of recap what happened last time?
We read 3 various stories. We had, God, I forget it was what was it? Fuck Keppa.
No. Just this one.
Oh, this one. So last time we had a 911 operator, Marielle. She got a call on a night shift, and it was from herself. As this title suggests. So she pulled up her cameras and stuff, and she could see like a guy outside her house. She couldn't see inside or whatever. And then the ending was that the line went dead, so she's not too sure what happened, and she went and left her shift early and was like staying at a hotel or whatever. So,
but she also talked to that one guy with the camera.
Oh yeah. She talked to her coworker. What's his name?
And was the guy still at the house at the end?
We don't know.
Okay.
We didn't know either way. She couldn't see her.
Wait, so she just left work?
Yeah, she left work early.
Oh, to go home.
To go home, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But she didn't go home, she went to a hotel?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you go home to check out what's going on?
I wouldn't. Are you serious? If I've heard on the phone that some guy, like from myself, I get a call from myself that some guy is breaking in and the girl who's probably yourself is dead, and my first thought isn't, oh, I'm gonna go home and see what's going on
I certainly
here.
wouldn't just go to a hotel and be like,
I absolutely would. I absolutely would lay low for a couple of days. No way I'm going to that. Are you
But like,
stupid?
she's not going to authorities or anything?
She's a 911 She's a 911 operator. What's she gonna say?
Well, she sent the police there. She's not going to like go check in with the police?
I don't know.
Listen,
I didn't write it.
Look,
Right.
we'll see.
Right, we're gonna go get into it.
Am I reading or are you reading?
I'm reading.
And
I'm the reader.
Am I
and
back
you're
to
doing-
dialogue?
Yes.
I didn't even remember the voices I used. I
It's
should've checked.
okay, as long as it's fine.
I'll use
Doesn't have
this
to-
one. The voice I use for everything.
Okay.
Boys.
I'm a 911 operator. Yesterday, my coworker got a call from herself. Okay. I sat on the cushioned armchair in the hotel room Marielle had rented after running off inexplicably from her shift last night. I'd called her earlier this morning after finishing work without even going to sleep. She's always been level-headed, and her acting like this made me feel concerned. I couldn't just let it go. And now here I was, listening to how she'd apparently spoke to herself last night on the phone.
Marielle, you sure these night shifts aren't a bit too much for you?
Though I wanted to trust her, what she was describing to me sounded straight out like a book or a movie. Great reference there. And the lack of sleep really takes a toll, too big for you to even comprehend.
I'm not saying you're making this up, but maybe just you remember it wrong.
Marielle paced around the room with one hand resting on her hip and the other hand held up to her forehead, pushing her hair back as she exhaled loudly.
I know. Oh. I fucked up already. I know how insane this sounds, Connor, but I'm telling you, I'm 100% certain about what I heard and saw on those cameras. And there was another me in that house last night, and some person broke my damn window. How can you be taking this so calmly? We haven't even heard from the regular responders yet, and it's been more than 6 hours.
Well, there's the answer to your question. She was right.
Okay. Well.
There'd been no info back to us on that call. Nothing on the news, no contact from the officers. When I used Marielle's phone to try and call back whoever it was that woke her up, there was nothing. I told her that while I can't explain the call itself, I agreed that it was too dangerous for her to go back home, considering there was an intruder. I offered her to let her stay at my place for the next few days, and while she agreed and thanked me, she wouldn't let the topic of her other self go. I understood her to some extent, but I was still skeptical. So I offered her to go back to my place so I can change and grab the pistol I keep locked in my safe and a flashlight. Then we could look for the officers at her house ourselves. She was afraid, but I think the curiosity and stress about what might have happened to the supposed other her prevailed, and that was what made her agree to this plan. I waited for her to get her things out of the room and I drove back to my house. In the meantime, asking her about any details she might have missed about the call to make sure we were going in prepared. The drive to her house was not long, and during it I tried to play some music to lighten the mood or talk to her about anything so I could distract her. But all I got was one or two words in response while she was lost in thought looking out the window. When we arrived, I parked in her driveway. We're just outside sat the policeman's car with the two doors slightly ajar, but no sign of them. Marielle's breathing fastened, and I put a hand on her shoulder to calm her down. Then, without anything being said, both of us got out of the car. The first thing we did was walk up to the police car and see if there's anything out of the ordinary, like slashed tires or any sign of a struggle. But it was parked there like any other vehicle and there was nothing obvious on the inside. What I discovered though was the radio, which while it didn't look like it had been tampered with, was not working. I walked back towards the house and called for Marielle to walk with me as we circled it from afar, finding the broken window leading into the kitchen even. I was just about to suggest calling 911 again and have them go into the house while we wait outside, but Marielle snapped before I could even speak.
Why the hell is nothing being done about this?
She raised her hands in the air and turned to look at me, her blue eyes conveying a mixture of anger and confusion.
2 policemen have disappeared since responding to this call. There was an intruder in my home, and there was literally a clone or something of me inside while I was at work. Tell me why I haven't heard anything about this, Connor. I don't know, okay? If everything happened like you say it did, it just doesn't make any sense.
I cut her off before she started talking again, knowing that she jumped to me for accusing her of lying.
But we really should just let the authorities handle this. We're not professionals.
Mario tried to get something out of me, but just cut herself off and shook her head. I thought she had given in and would do the logical thing and take my advice. Instead, she turned and walked a few steps towards her back door and then looked back at me.
What are you doing? I'm going in. No one's gonna listen to me anyway, and I'm not about to leave here without some kind of answer or clue.
That's that kind of protagonist logic.
That's my logic.
You think so?
Dude, I wouldn't let that go. That's like, what the fuck is going on? And nobody's
True.
doing anything?
I guess like the police officers that were there did like kind of disappear. I guess that's fair.
What the hell? I'd have to know.
Okay. I stared at her completely taken aback and waited a few seconds to see if she would say anything else. But she just stayed there looking right at me. I know deep down she was hoping I would say that I'm going in with her. Well, before I did that, I tried to convince her to think this through again. But that was obviously not going to work. So that's just what I did. But I have to admit, I was getting nervous myself. The back door was unlocked and led into a different hallway than the one she told me about, which I figured out by the lack of an attic hatch. Marielle told me the layout of her home and we walked together. Me in front.
Oh God, sorry.
You alright?
Nova's moving the lights. 1 second.
Oh,
I just saw this like walking over. Oh, buddy.
The back door was unlocked and led into a different hallway than the one she told me about, which I figured out by the lack of an attic hatch. Mario told me the layout of her home and we walked together, me in front with my gun drawn as I called out asking if anyone was there. She smacked my shoulder and raised her arms with wide eyes and I shushed her. But I had no way of knowing if there was an intruder or police officers or both, and I didn't want blood on my hands, no matter whose. As you might expect, we got no response from anywhere and heard nothing that might indicate there being anyone else here with us. We found nothing out of the ordinary in Marielle's home, but the hallway with the attic had some things worth noting. The first being what we immediately saw, the phone on the ground, and slight marks like scratches on the walls, which were the only signs of anything out of the ordinary. Well, you know, beside the broken window.
That must be what she used to call. It's identical to mine.
She grabbed it and tried turning it on, but had no battery left. The screen was slightly cracked to the top right edge, probably for where it first impacted the floor.
What the hell is going on, Connor? Calm down.
I began, knowing that she wouldn't listen.
There's only the attic and the basement left for us to look through. We can check up there and then go down last. Does that sound? How's that? Fuck. How does that sound? How's that sound? Yeah, okay. But the basement's locked. If the key hasn't been moved, it must be one of my it must be in one of my bedroom drawers. All right. I'll check out the attic while you grab the key. There's no point in both of us going up there.
I raised the gun in the air while reaching for my flashlight.
Don't worry about me. This is getting very, what's that video game? With the zombies that's got the cheesy dialogue.
The Last of Us.
No.
The Walking Dead.
No.
Those are the only ones I know.
Fuck. The fourth one's got the blonde guy with the emo hair.
Resident Evil.
Yes! This reminds me of the first few Resident Evil games with just the cheesy dialogue and shit.
I've actually never played Resident Evil.
They're like literally walking through a house searching for keys with a gun and they're giving each other like action movie dialogue. This is like textbook.
Wow.
Textbook.
Marielle nodded and began walking towards the bedroom, disappearing past the door after I started ascending into the attic. There was nothing on top of the hatch, which I realised before even looking around to see because of how easily I was able to lift it open, confirming our suspicion that the other woman hadn't made it up there before the end of the call. What immediately struck me as odd was the immediately drop in temperature here. Yeah, it was an attic, but the difference must have been at least 10 degrees, and I shivered as I made my way up. and I shivered as I made my way up and started shining the light across the entire space, behind empty old boxes, worn out furniture, and the various other items not worth noting. There was no place for anyone to hide up here, or at least not if you ask me, because I looked through every nook and cranny there was and found no trace of anyone or anything. Walking back, I started descending the ladder and called out for Marielle, but got no response. I wasn't immediately concerned because the hatch was left open, and if anything had happened, I'd have heard it. Waiting for a few seconds and remaining without a response, I made my way towards the bedroom, which was just as empty as when we looked in there together earlier. I called for her again and started looking through each of the rooms, and while doing that, I paused for a moment to listen, but not for Marielle. The background noises from earlier, like birds or passing cars, had all stopped. Again, that didn't strike me as odd at that moment. Looking through the rest of the rooms provided fruitless, and I thought that she may have got outside, probably waiting for me by the basement, and so I made my way to the back door and opened it. It led me back into the living room. I blinked and looked behind me. I was certainly in the same corridor we were first in when entering the house. Despite that, I shut the door and turned back to the exit from the house. When I opened that one, I was greeted with the kitchen. I still stood there for a few seconds, unable to take in what was happening, and rubbed my eyes. But here I was, still inside the house, standing right at the front door, which was leading me back inside. Interesting.
What do you think's going on so far?
Honestly, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't have any guesses. I think at the end of the last chapter, I was thinking like maybe an alternate universe, maybe like
My gut
time
says
travel.
like time paradox, but that wouldn't make sense if she didn't know. Neither one of them knew each other, so it can't be one's aware and led to the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's got to be like extra dimensional something, but who knows?
I don't know.
I really like how unpredictable this is, though. I have no
like
fucking
that as
clue.
well. Like I feel like when I read a lot of these things, like I feel like I know where it's going, and this is like
Yeah.
all questions.
This is excellent.
I walked through and approached the windows that was broken by the intruder. Instead of the green yard, the street with parked car and the neighbouring houses, I was greeted by a view into the bedroom. My heart started pounding, and I admit that I was on the verge of a panic attack. I started sweating profusely, and my heart felt like it was about to jump out of my chest as I began running from room to room, door through door, trying to get out again and again and again, finding myself in different parts of the house. I had to stop and sit down a few moments before I passed out. And while regaining my composure, I saw something odd. Not that this whole situation wasn't far more disturbing than I'm giving it credit for. I noticed that the walls of the living room where I was currently sitting had changed colour, and half the table was just missing. Like, imagine a bug or a glitch in some video game where half a piece of furniture is there and the rest is gone. The table still had two of its legs, on which it was standing completely fine, but the surface was cut diagonally, and the rest of it just wasn't there. I waved my hand through where it was supposed to be, and they just swiped right through the air. I continued walking through different rooms, and the changes began getting more and more apparent. Like it was the chandelier in the kitchen was upside down, and sitting in the middle of the air, attached to nothing. It was physically there, and when I tried pushing it, it would move. But it was physically there, and when I tried pushing it, it wouldn't move. But I could still feel and touch it.
That's fucking awesome.
It's giving like the back rooms, you know what I mean?
You know what I thought of is Skinamarink.
Yeah. Oh, that's like. Oh.
I won't say anything about it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely. I know what you
yeah.
mean. That it does definitely give those vibes.
Yeah. That's my new theory now.
Well, it's like
We'll
a
see.
Skinamarink type situation.
Yeah.
That doesn't really explain like the call though.
Couldn't it be that some entity lured her?
Interesting. Yeah,
You know?
that is true. Definitely.
Because she saw the cameras, but the cameras could be lying to her. Like,
True. She did see the guy, but
If
she
it's like
didn't
a-
see the girl.
if it's like a demonic, haunted kind of possessive situation, that could be. It
Yeah,
could shown
sure.
her anything.
I don't know how long I spent in this place, but for the first time in what I was now feeling like hours, I heard a noise. Breathing. Rapid, scared breathing, just like mine when I found myself here. It was coming from the neighbouring room. I couldn't say which one, as by now it had been a gamble where I'd stumble. I ended up appearing back into the bedroom, where I was greeted by a gruesome sight of a tall man with torn clothing and wounds, superficial and deep all over his body, lying in a messy pool of blood and something dark mixed with it. Some of which was also splattered on the wall behind him, where I saw the same scratch marks as the one on the walls of the hallway earlier. It was as if I had had an instantaneous flashback after seeing him. What remained of his clothing was still the same as what the person who broke into Marielle's home was wearing. He was still alive, but his eyes were red and he screamed as he saw me. I did the same in reaction.
No! 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 Get away! Get away from me!
He yelled through paled inhales and tried to muster up strength to throw one of his shoes at me, but it only got over his leg and was barely any further away from him.
Get the fuck away! I'm not looking to hurt you. Look, You're not real!
Taking the risk of giving him a heart attack that would finally take him out of his misery, I rushed by his side and held my hands in the air, yelling loud enough to silence him. I started shooting every question I could think of at him, and when he stopped trying to talk over me, I grabbed him by the shoulder, shaking him. He looked as if I was about to faint at any moment now. I asked him what this place was, why he broke in, if he knows Marielle, and I could barely get any coherent response out of him until he grasped my right arm with strength he didn't look like he had, which left me shocked and silent. During my time of silence, he spoke.
Hang on a second. I think I might have gotten the dialogue backwards there. Was it him that sang, you're not real? I think it was.
It was the guy who's like bleeding out.
Yeah, okay. Might be.
I'm not going to hurt you. Look, I didn't even notice you made that mistake, so.
Right, I switched them. I thought.
No worries.
Yeah, okay. Not people. Fake.
Before I could inquire or could reveal more about himself, I was suddenly thrown into the wall, next to the man. I couldn't even yell in reaction to the pain. Another blow struck me right in the ribs, and the pain was so unexpected and strong, I held my eyes shut and clutched my sides. Amidst the chaos, I could hear the man scream, and suddenly, what I assumed was happening was that he got thrown away. His screams continued, but faded into the distance, and I heard a crash and glass breaking. Mere moments later, just as I was about to open my eyes, I was grabbed by one of my arms and flung right back out the room door. Suddenly, all the noise stopped, and I stayed curled in a ball on the floor, tears of pain streaming down my cheeks as I held my hands over where I'd been kicked or punched or whatever was happened. I assumed I had at least broken 2 ribs, and I could barely touch the area without sharp pain coming in. When I opened my eyes, I found myself back in the attic, but this time I could hear Marielle yelling for me downstairs. I slowly got myself back up, holding my side while descending back down into the corridor. I could hear the neighbourhood sounds had returned.
I'm here!
I shouted and sat on the floor while waiting for her to arrive. When she did, she gasped and ran at me, putting a hand on my shoulder, asking me what happened and how I got hurt.
We have to get out of here.
She helped me get up, allowing me to lean on her as we started walking out.
I'll explain at the hotel.
I allowed her to drive, and she kept asking me questions in the meantime, but I was too exhausted and in pain to respond coherently. When we arrived at the parking lot, she turned to face me, looking me in the eyes and saying something I did not even register at that point. I was too caught up in a small detail that I knew I would have noticed for all the time I'd known her.
Marielle, since when are your eyes 2 different colors?
Interesting.
Dun dun dun.
This is very interesting. I don't know, I really could not say what's going on. With the change, like the fake people, obviously it's clear that this isn't Marielle. That's immediately what jumps out to me. It's like someone else. But if it was going to be like a skinwalker thing, then I feel
is it like a
house,
doppelganger or is it like a possession thing though?
I don't know. I don't know. Like I feel like it's not people fake would imply that it's like a doppelganger. That would make sense with the call as well, right? maybe it's like something trying to lure them there, but I don't know. Also, like the question is, Marielle has presumably lived in this house.
Yeah.
Like the entire, like for years.
Why is it suddenly haunted?
Why is this suddenly happening now? What triggered like the call or whatever? We're not really getting a lot of information about it.
And is Connor fake too now? Because the guy called him out as being fake.
Good question.
Does he even know that he's been replaced?
I feel like if he was replaced, then we wouldn't get this dialogue. I feel like it's interesting that they're switching the protagonist. I wonder if they'll do it again.
Could be like a Decker replicant situation, you know? I don't know.
Sure.
Really fucking good so far, though.
Interesting.
That's been excellent.
So, for the next one is called We Are 911 Operators. Something is trying to replace us. Banger title, by the way. Really like that title. Do you want to swap for this one? So you want to do the reading and I'll do the dialogue?
Sure. Yeah.
Keep it
we
fresh.
can do that. Yeah.
Because otherwise my mouth is gonna, my throat is gonna collapse.
I think it works well when we trade off, too. Okay, first one's from her perspective, second one's from Connor's. This one is
It looks like it's
theoretically
from
from both.
Is it?
Well, from the title, it's We Are 911 Operators.
Interesting. Okay.
We are... Okay. I could not find the keys to the basement, no matter where I looked in the bedroom. I don't remember misplacing it, but with everything that's happened in the past 12 hours or so, I wasn't about to question something as mundane as this. Afraid to go too far without Connor, I decided to wait by the ladder up to the attic for him to finish searching and maybe join him if he found something. But when I stopped to listen, I could hear no footsteps or any noise coming from up there.
Connor?
I called while looking up at the darkness above me, seeing no ray of light from his flashlight either. But I heard him speak to me and figured he must be quite a way inside.
I'm up here.
His voice was flat and sounded strange, not quite like him, but I chalked it. They spelled that wrong. I chalked it up to the way sound carried itself from above to the hallway.
Come up. I found something.
He is replaced. They're each replaced. Are they even back in the real world? I bet they're not. I bet they're in hell. I bet they're in this weird... It lured them in.
Huh?
It lured them in.
Oh, yeah.
And it replaced them and sent them out with different people. Oh my god. Okay.
What
Were you gonna say something?
What's up?
Oh. I asked, starting to climb the ladder, but he didn't get the answer I expected. Actually, I got no answer at all.
Connor?
I called again with my head now picking up into the attic, and I finished ascending. I cleaned my hands of the dust and shivered from how cold it was up there, then looked around and found myself completely in the dark with no light coming from anywhere. Something felt wrong, and I wasn't sure if the next chill that ran through my body was from the cold or my intuition. I didn't wait around to find out and quickly climbed back down into the hallway where the cold of the attic followed me. It was strange to say the least. It wasn't like that before I'd gone up there. I waited for a little while, wondering what had caused Connor to behave so unlike himself. The cold was just too much, and I began feeling uncomfortable. So while waiting for him, I decided I'd go back to the bedroom to grab a jacket, but upon opening the door, I was greeted to my living room. I don't think I need to describe to you how I felt in that moment, but I began growing more and more concerned as I wandered from room to room and found myself in an impossible loop of my own home, to which I was now like a mouse to a trap. Occasionally, after going through each room, so many times I could hear sounds that didn't seem to fit, and objects denying reality itself. Windows had been placed on ceilings looking into nothing, furniture floating in the middle of the air or clipping into the floor, a reality show playing in the middle of my kitchen in which there was no TV. So her shit's a little more intense than his was.
Yeah, and I'm still wondering what the trigger is. Why did this happen now? She's been living here for so long. What she mentioned as well is that she's never had friends over to her house.
Oh, did she say that?
In the first chapter, she's never had anyone over to her house. I wonder if the trigger is someone else being there. I don't know. I have so many questions about this, and it feels like none of them are being answered.
We'll see. We got a part and a half left.
Also, what I think is, in the last chapter, I don't think that Connor was replaced.
No.
I think that was the real Connor.
And she was replaced and is
And
still
she
with
was
Connor in the house,
replaced.
the fake Connor?
Yes, I think they're all
So they're
still
both
in the
replaced,
house.
but one went back to the real world, one did not.
I think, I don't know. I think either, depends how this goes, but I definitely think that was the real Connor, but not the real Marielle. I think whoever's talking, whoever's point of view it is real.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is interesting. That gives leeway to why they keep switching povs here.
That would also explain why they would be able to post it on No Sleep.
Exactly. So, because otherwise, like, why would they do that? Why would they draw attention to it, right?
Sure. To say the least, I was terrified and convinced I would never make it out of here, as everything only seemed to get worse and only that much more confusing. And no matter how much time I spent looking at each room, I'd move to the next and find nothing that even hinted of a way of getting out of the maze. Adrenaline flooded my body in the middle of my search of the kitchen when I heard footsteps and increasingly louder static mixed with a voice constantly changing its pitch, but not in a regular way. Rather, this voice was constantly swapping between male and female. Me.
That was a good joke.
There was nowhere in the kitchen to hide, so the only thing I could do was hide behind the counter on the other side and stay as silent as I could be. Considering the circumstances, I covered my mouth and still feared the sound of my heart pounding would be enough to give me away. The three sounds moved closer and closer together, and eventually reached the kitchen. The footsteps came to a stop, but what I was hearing disturbed me in a way nothing had been able to in all my time alive. What I heard, presumably coming from the entrance to the kitchen, was, like I said, a voice swapping between that of a man and a woman, mixed in with radio static, citing yesterday's news and the weather report, random conversations, and then something all too familiar. 911, what's your emergency? Holy shit!
I just got chills.
Oh
man.
my god, sorry, I stepped in your
Oh, it's
line
okay.
there.
911, what's your emergency?
It was my voice! My breathing froze, and I slowly looked up without revealing myself from the counter, expecting whatever was was here in the kitchen with me to be looking down like it was like in a horror movie, but thankfully there was nothing. The voice continued, swapping between the voices of two other men, mine, and out of nowhere, Connor's.
Marielle, since when were your eyes two different colors?
Holy shit, this is so good, dude. I don't give a fuck, this is amazing. I widened my eyes in disbelief and covered my mouth with both hands, praying whatever this was would leave. The static grew louder at first, and then it began stopping and starting again at random intervals, while this thing continued repeating the same phrase over and over again. It was sickening to listen to.
Marielle, since when are your eyes two different colors? Marielle, since when are your eyes two different colors?
So Skinamarink inspired. This has to be. They have to have seen it. By now, the voices had stopped swapping, and Connor's was the only one repeating this. Then, just as suddenly as it arrived, the footsteps began walking in the opposite direction, and the phrase fading into the otherwise silent house. I was so petrified by what had just happened, I couldn't bring myself to get up for another few minutes, and had to keep myself from crying. After spending enough time with just myself and no inexplicable sound showing up, I stood upright again and looked around to find that I was alone. It finally dawned on me that because of the state of the panic I was in, I had completely forgotten the most obvious part of the kitchen, the window that intruder broke in to get inside. It was still shattered, but unlike most of the other windows that looked into nothing or just walls, beyond it was my bedroom and the sight of a body on the ground that I could not recognize. I fucked up my contact. Okay, we're good.
Baby.
Oh. It's a hard job, okay?
Hardest job in the fucking world.
Hardest job on the planet. Every streamer says so. I gasped when I saw it, then noticed that I was lying in a pool of blood. I crawled through the window and approached it slowly. Being able to get closer allowed me to see that its clothes, though torn and bloody, were the same as the ones of the man who had broken into my window was wearing. The realization made me stop in my tracks for a moment before resuming my crawl towards him. It was a man whose face I could not yet see. It was turned away from me, and the hood of the gray hoodie, or what remained of it, was still up. There must have been some kind of fight with someone or something, because over his legs was my bedside table with the lamp broken on the ground, glass scattered all around. Carefully kneeling down so as not to cut myself, I turned the man's head towards me, revealing the wide-eyed, bloody face of someone I knew all too well. Lying before me, dead on the ground after breaking into my home, was my ex-husband, Russell.
Interesting. I forgot that she had her ex-husband. She mentioned him before.
What did she say about him? I don't remember that.
She didn't mention much. She mentioned that he was the one who put security cameras in the house. I wonder what would happen if she checked those security cameras now. Because I realised that it hasn't been mentioned again. This is like it's all jumbled up and stuff. I wonder what the security cameras would show.
Right. Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if we'll revisit that.
Yeah.
I never talked about Russell much to anyone after we finalized our divorce. I had long since been emotionally detached from him after 2 years of growing neglect that made us argue more and more every day. And we would not end up talking to each other for weeks after some of the fights. Everything started as what I first thought was a way for him to try and scare me, as he knew I had always been afraid of anything horror related, so he found it funny to occasionally read out a scary story or pop out of around a corner to see my reaction. I never paid him much mind and only laughed it off when he started talking about the other side and the mirror people, but he kept getting more and more interested in it until that was everything he could talk about from day to night. Sometimes not even sleeping to continue what he called his research, and what I found to be the mindless scrolling on the internet and reading made up articles about some made up thing to scare teenagers and gullible minds. After everything I had seen and gone through, I remembered all of it for the first time in a few months. I'd been able to...
I remembered all of it for the first time in a few months. I'd been able to bury it in my mind.
Thank you. I don't know what he was doing here. Why he was trying to break into my home and how he ended up like this. So many thoughts flooded through my head instantly, most of them grief and confusion. But I had no time to process any of them as I jumped back at the sight of a piece of glass pierced through my right palm, and I let out an involuntary yelp.
So, do you think the husband was trying to break in to warn her, or do you think the entity was like possessing the ex-husband there? Because I wonder if the ex-husband was trying to warn or do something to the creature that was like the other her.
Could he have been trying to get help?
What do you mean?
Like he's stuck in this mirror universe or whatever,
Well,
and he's going to that house because he knows it?
Maybe. But I don't know. So what I'm thinking now is that the other her that called her, I'm thinking that was the entity. And either the ex-husband or whatever broke in to try and do something about it. I feel like the other her, although she was kind of played as the victim in the first chapter, I think that's sort of predatory, that's sort of luring her there.
Maybe. I don't know. I think they could go a few directions. I'm still pretty open to anything. I don't have any firm...
I'm trying to like predict like what's gonna happen, but I don't know. I really don't know. I feel like there's so much going on here. It's like it's not really leaning into any particular trope, you know. Yeah. The repeating, the entity repeating itself, trying to sound human. That definitely gives me Skinwalker vibes. That's like it's like something it's trying to perfect English. It's trying to perfect.
But is there more? There's more than one, right? It's mirror people, and there's more than one possession going on at once.
I wonder.
Are they trapped in this universe and they're trying to get out into the real world? Maybe he was part of that.
Maybe, I'm not sure.
No, but then he wouldn't have called out Connor as being a not real person.
Yeah, exactly. He must not be possessed. That's the thing. So he must be real. I feel like, because otherwise he wouldn't have done that. He would have just like, you know.
I don't know. This is phenomenal, though. This is like, I feel like this could be a whole fucking book if you gave it more like character development.
I'm kind of glad that it's only the 4 parts. I feel like this is like pretty short. I feel like I'm like, can't believe we're on their second last one already. To be honest,
it's crazy. It's excellent.
I definitely didn't expect it to go in this direction, but I'm really happy that it did.
Yeah, this is really good. You need to give me an involuntary yelp. That's exactly what she sounded like. Just as I did that, Give me the... Just as I did that, I immediately heard the same sounds from earlier. Footsteps and voices with static mixed in, repeating random words and phrases. But this time, there was more than one, and they were coming right towards me. See, more than one.
He's right behind me, isn't he?
Obligatory right behind me. They're coming towards me, aren't they?
They're coming right towards me, aren't they?
I turned to my bed and rushed to hide under it, having no time to get to the wardrobe or to try to make my way back through the window and into the kitchen. The covers were hanging loosely and covered by half the space below the bed, so if I stayed quiet, I'd have a chance to go unnoticed. The unearthly sights. The unearthly sights kept coming. Rushing into the bedroom were three men. Two in police uniforms whose movements were unnaturally stiff and their faces expressionless, their eyes not even moving, and the third was not Connor. I mean, it looked like him. It had his face, but it was changing expressions every less than a second. Every less than a second, yeah. From a smile to nothing, to a grimace, to sadness, to every single emotion you can think of. His clothes were the ones I'd seen him in when he changed after we went to his house, only the colors kept changing rapidly. And then in the blink of an eye, he was wearing a suit. Again, the colors changing and mixing. What terrified me the most about the view was his limbs. Like I mentioned, the policemen were totally still and unmoving, but this Connor lookalike's limbs were spasming and flying around in movements the human body simply couldn't perform. One moment his arm was by his side, and the next it was raised backwards 90 degrees, instantly afterwards pointing forward and then clipping into his body before returning to normal again. And his head snapped violently from side to side as if his neck were constantly breaking and repairing itself.
Love the visuals.
Yeah.
Love these visuals. Really good.
The presence brought with them the static. But once they'd entered the room, the voices had stopped, and they just sat there for about half a minute before the static began ringing so loud I almost had to cover my ears, and then the three just disappeared. They were gone as if they'd never been there. I waited to see if anything would return again or if I'd hear any noises, but the only thing was total silence and the body of my ex-husband uncomfortably close to me while I was hiding. I crawled out from under the bed and took one more look at him before quickly jumping through the window and into the kitchen again. Only this time, it led my back... I
think that's supposed to say it led me back.
Oh. It led me back to the hallway with the attic. There was sure to be some emotional fallout from this, but my brain was not letting me process it now. Before I could even look around, I was tackled by something into the wall, and my mouth was covered, preventing me from screaming no matter how I tried. I started throwing my hands erratically into this thing, trying to hit it and make it release me, but it only began shushing me, and I realized and reduced the grip of its strength. I opened my eyes, the strength of its grip. I opened my eyes to see Connor, bruised and disheveled, his clothes dirty and stained with blood. He stared at me and spoke.
Blue eyes.
He then looked at my body, bloody hand.
He looked at my body! Oh, blue eyes. Damn, girl! You've got some sexy blue eyes here. Let me look at your body.
He then looked at my bloody hand and let me go, before that pressing a finger to his lips to tell me to stay silent. Seeing him so beat up while the rest of those things looked, well, completely abnormal and impossible to even exist, and considering the fact that he was not the actual Connor and wanted to harm me, it had the opportunity to but didn't. I'm so sorry, does that make sense? What did I just read?
Yes, it does make sense.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. Go ahead.
Connor?
I whispered and eyed him up and down. He really had it rough somewhere.
Is it you? The real you? Yes, yes. Quiet, Marielle. Something's here. It's not human.
Connor was more afraid than I had ever seen him, and he gave the impression of someone who was not easy to scare.
We need to find a way out. How did you end up here? From the attic? Yeah, the first time. The first time?
After making sure we had heard none of those things approaching, and looked through the window and each of the doors, Connor and I sat in the middle of the hallway where he explained to me how he had been attacked by something after finding the intruder, and was thrown back into what we assume was reality. Where I found him,
Where I found him.
Where I found him and we drove back to the hotel. Okay. That's when he'd seen that my eyes were different colors. And bringing it up caused the other Marielle to begin distorting her limbs just like I'd seen the other Connor do. And her head had started to twitch. Before he could get out of the car, she lunged at him from the driver's seat, and he woke up again in the middle of the living room.
Interesting.
We were able to mutually shock each other. So he wasn't really in the real world then?
No.
Okay.
That's kind of what I thought. I thought he wasn't actually back in the real world. I thought he
Right.
was just in another part of the loop.
It's like that Rick and Morty episode where Jerry's in like a,
Wow,
a simulated
yeah.
universe. Listening
A
to
great reference there.
Yeah.
I'm so smart. I watched Rick and Morty.
Bro, that was season 2. Actually, I think it was season 3. It's embarrassing that I know that.
Exactly. You're digging yourself a deeper hole.
Yeah. Where are we? Blah, blah, blah. We were able to mutually shock each other, with him with his experience and me with the fact that this intruder was my ex-husband.
So why did he try and break into your home? Does he hate you? Does he want to hurt you?
Is he stupid?
No, it was obvious to me he still loved me even after all the arguments and the divorce. I was the one that ended things, but he'd spoken about the other side and mirror people. That's what he called them.
I blinked and moved my eyes from staring into the wall that was not the right color to look at Connor.
I think he knew something about this and was trying to warn me.
We sat and thought for a little while longer before he got up and helped me off the floor.
We have to find a way out fast, Marielle.
The door we went through led us into the bedroom, or this place's version of it. It looked exactly like it normally does, which was unusual, aside from one thing, and that was the mirror, which did not have its usual reflective surface, but was instead looking into another bedroom.
Interesting.
We looked around thoroughly first before I helped Connor climb up the sink and he crawled through. The second he did, however, he disappeared, and I was left all alone again. Afraid to turn back and unsure of what else to do, I started making my way on the sink with one leg and through the mirror with the rest of my body. Halfway through, I turned in reaction to hearing an ear-piercing scream coming from a woman mixed with the undertone of a male voice and the damn static. Charging through the door of the bathroom and right at me was me. The other Marielle's eyes were wide and her mouth was open as loud as it could humanly go. And she grabbed me by my ankle and began pulling me back in. I held onto the edges and screamed, using my other leg to kick at her hands, but she wouldn't not let me go, only intensifying these inhuman screams that will forever haunt my nightmares. Despite that, I continued trying while looking around to see if there was anything on the sink that might help me. And I saw the glass cup that I used to keep my toothbrush in. I grabbed it and used all my strength to slam it into the other Marielle's head, shattering it. A final kick into her face was just enough to force her to release me, and I made the rest of my way into the mirror, her screams stopping as if I'd just woken from a dream. I dropped down onto the floor with a loud thud, immediately pushing myself back up against the wall and hyperventilating while Connor looked at me, unsure of what to do.
What the hell happened? Why did it take you so long?
He knelt by my side and winced in pain, putting his left hand over his ribs.
The other mean damn near dragged me back in! Holy, well, you don't have to worry about that, I think. Look.
Connor pointed to the mirror after my breathing slowly started going back to normal, and I only saw pitch black in it.
Looks like we found the way out. How do you know we're out? Listen, there's noising outside. Hear those construction workers? The cars?
I nodded and took in the sound he was describing.
I don't know if you noticed, but there's none of that in there.
I stood up and approached it, not daring to put my hand through, but stared into the black void. I would describe what I was seeing as impossible, but considering everything that had gone down just now, I don't think that word has any meaning anymore.
We need to get out of this house before we get trapped again. Is your car still outside?
I asked as I opened the door leading out into the hallway, making sure to go check beforehand. The house looked completely normal.
No, I don't know where it is. Maybe still at the hotel, or honestly, I have no idea. I just showed up here again after being attacked by whatever that thing pretending to be you was.
My car was at the hotel also. At least that's where I left it after ending my shift early and following that call. So we decided to call a taxi to get us to Connor's house where we would both take a break and get fixed up, hopefully without having to worry about being pulled into another dimension or whatever this place we were trapped in was. After I took a shower, Connor went to rest and make sure he had no wounds he was missing, and I'd wrap my hand in bandages before using his laptop, with permission of course, to do some research on what Russell had been so obsessed with all that time ago. The weight of finding the man I'd spent so much time in love with, dead in a place that couldn't exist, still hadn't come down on me, but at least it allowed me to remain focused. Looking up Mirror People and Other Side together yielded scattered and terribly written posts with grammar and spelling mistakes, packed with action scenes that were obviously works of fiction by people who'd stumble upon something similar online. But one of the top results was an actually well put together website describing these entities as another me, documenting reports of people seeing, hearing, talking, and even interacting with themselves. But by the time it had reached that point, no more updates had been posted. I showed the website to Connor, and he browsed through it, finding something I hadn't looked for yet at the bottom of the corner of the webpage. It was the creator of the website's name, a middle-aged woman by the name of Rebecca Simmons, and the contact information about her email, encouraging people who have experience to share to contact her.
We have nothing to lose, right? I mean, this all sounds completely insane and psychotic, but we just went through it. And this woman is probably the only person who'd believe us right off the bat.
Connor looked at me again, but suddenly his eyes trailed towards my injured hand.
Sure. Are you going to write the email or should I?
Connor didn't reply. He seemed zoned out.
What's wrong? Mario, what's happening to you?
I looked at my injured hand and gasped, then quickly lifted up my leg. like a dog. Then quickly lifted up the leg of my pants to see the same thing on my ankle. At the same time, Connor lifted one side of his shirt enough to see where he'd been attacked. My hand, ankle, and that part of Connor's torso were pitch black.
Interesting.
I'm not gonna lie. After they reunited and started to get out of the house, it's losing me a little bit. The pacing just went breakneck, and I don't know, I'm like an idiot, so I'm fucking up my sentences, but also I feel like it feels a little more rushed than the beginning did, you know?
I just, maybe this is like a harsh criticism or whatever. I wonder if the author knows where this is going.
Oh, like he's kind of making up as he goes.
That's the feeling I'm getting right now. Don't get me wrong, I feel like it does kind of like go together. I just feel like this is like, I don't know.
This feels like another 4 parts worth of information.
Yeah.
At the end of one.
It feels like there's far too much going on here. I feel like if they were going to have it, and as well, like, what kind of bothered me was the ending with Connor in the last time, and then the action happened directly after that. We don't hear that. We don't know about it, you know? It seems like that was a little strange.
Right, we just get told about it really quickly.
We just get told about it afterwards, after the fact, when that was like, I get the ending of like, Mario, why is your one eye like different color? That's a cool ending. I get that, but at what cost? You know,
it defeats the cliffhanger that they set up.
I don't know.
It's just like explained.
The visuals of the house and stuff were so cool, but then going into this like, oh, there's a woman that has a website and she knows about this. It's kind of going into like shitty horror tropes. You know what I mean? Like like of like, oh, they're gonna meet someone, and I can't help but notice that the last part doesn't have any kind of award put on it. So we'll
they're
see.
Instantly like, well, it could be newer, but even so, like, and they're instantly like, oh, this could be the only person who can help us. Like and the fact that she so quickly learned, like she immediately remembered what it was. Because her husband reminded her of this universe, and then she immediately found some stuff on Google about it, and now they're immediately going to this, and it's like, oh, I just found out that I'm turning pitch black. Yeah. It's like, it's a lot.
It just feels like there's too much going on here.
It's just breakneck. I'm going back to my original thing, and this would really benefit from more like character development and being in a book format. But
I actually don't know if I agree with that. Obviously, like it's not really like the r/no sleep part of this doesn't really matter here because it's like, you know, it doesn't matter if this was posted on r/no sleep or like a CreepCast subreddit or just like any kind of website. That wouldn't matter for this story. I don't know. I do really like a lot of elements of it. I'm interested to see where the payoff is going.
Yeah.
Right now, I wonder if like. So there's one creature who I think was the original woman mimicking Marielle at the start. I wonder if like the more people like it kills, it like multiplies or something. And the other ones
like
that
it
are
takes them over.
yeah, the other ones that are not quite like as developed. I wonder if they're like not literally, but like it's children, so to say. Like they're still developing, they're still learning how
like
to
they're brand
mimic
new.
humans. Yeah. So there's one particular one, and maybe there was only one at the start, and that one is already practiced at mimicking. That's why it got Marielle dead on.
What do you think about the fact that they seem to react to you knowing about them? Like,
I think that's par for the course. Clearly, I don't know, I feel like with anything that wants to mirror people or mimic them, what is its end goal? So it wants to mimic someone to get to a point where its prey is, you know, like, feels like it lowers its guard or whatever.
but it's almost like a virus of the mind, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like it's like
yeah.
because the moment that you start to realize what's going on, it
Yeah.
loses its grip a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
You're back where you were. It's
You're
no
back in
longer
there.
taking
Yeah,
you into
yeah.
this fictional world.
I think it's interesting as well that it could, like the facade of like the real world being around him, like a Connor like driving his car and stuff. That's really interesting. I think the other world aspect of this is by far the most interesting.
Yeah.
And the entities are still interesting. It just feels like it's like stuff I've seen before.
Yeah.
The other world and the visuals that go with it, great thing.
I'd say first half, 10 out of 10. This part, the first half was excellent, and then it just a little dip. I wouldn't say it's bad,
I wonder-
but it's not. I wish it would take its
Yeah.
time more. Is all.
Yeah, maybe like this the last chapter, this one, part 3, could have finished with them like escaping. Like the last thing could have been them getting out or something.
Sure. I also question like how much the format is influencing this, because
Yeah.
this was posted sequentially. Is he writing this as it's going, and he already knew it was going to be 4 parts? Because the
I don't
first one
know.
was part 1 of 4 before all the parts were posted, right?
No. So when I saw this, like when like the day it was posted, it didn't have part 1 and 4.
Oh,
But I
okay.
think later on he must have known that it was going to end up
Okay.
being in 4 parts.
Then never mind. Then
Yeah.
that's a nothing critique then.
Okay. Well, we get into I love these titles. Really like these titles. We were 911 operators. I don't know what we are anymore.
That's a great title, but also, you don't know what you are, but you were able to make a Reddit account and post.
Listen, I think for this entire thing, like the idea that you have to post this on r/nosleep as it's something like this, I've always thought that was a stupid concept.
I agree, but I just I don't
Yeah.
know. I wish there was like an r/creepypasta that was
There
more.
is.
But isn't it more like established works, or is it like this?
I am not so sure because
Should
I
we check it
haven't
out?
spent a lot of time on it. Yeah, I think we should. I think we should like spend. I think there's other like websites that are like designated as like creepypasta websites as well.
Yeah.
We should probably take a look at those ones rather than just staying on r/nosleep.
Yeah.
I only suggested this because I actually read r/nosleep stories like every day.
Sure.
So I'm able to like just stumble across some really good ones.
No, I'm with you, but
Yeah.
I don't really care about the rule either. It's just a nitpick.
I never liked that in r/nosleep stories. Don't get me wrong. There's some times where it ties together really well. What's that one? The Glenmont metro station.
Yeah.
That tied together.
I just
became
feel
really
like
well.
there's so few stories you can tell that are remotely believable that like that's just
yeah.
kind of pointless.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
You know, like
I agree with that.
I don't know. It's like why bother when they're already so fantastical?
Yeah.
They can still be scary and fantastical.
sure.
They can still be scary and not real.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You want me to go back to reading the text?
Please, I'm having such a hard
I seem to be a little bit better at it. All right.
Oof. Okay.
An extremely long day of fear
And extrudingly,
excruciating. Oh, sorry. My bad. Do you like that? I just read out words and mispronounce them like
An
completely
extrudingly
wrong, and I'm
long
just
day.
like, yeah, that's exactly how that's pronounced. An excruciatingly long day, full of fear and anxiety, passed before we heard back from Rebecca. She had messages She had messaged us asking to meet in person after we described our situation in detail, but warned us in advance that she does not know how helpful she would be. The drive to the address she was giving us was about an hour and a half away in Augusta, where she had a small apartment she was staying at currently. Connor and I walked to the hotel to find my car was still there, but his had disappeared.
What state is this in? Did we ever establish that?
No, it just says it's in a small town.
Where is Augusta? Let me Google that real quick. Sorry, I just want to know.
What?
Augusta, USA. Augusta, Georgia?
No.
Isn't that the capital?
Is it?
No. I don't know. Who gives a shit?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Southern. Oh, we should have been given a southern accent.
Oh, I can't do a southern accent to save myself.
We're
I'm terrible at accents.
We were 911 operators.
We were 911 operators.
Couple of little small town yokel 911 operators. Don't know
well,
nothing
they are
about
small town
nothing.
yokel 911 operators.
We found these mirror people and we put it into Google and found you. So help us out, lady.
With the fucking redneck hat on and everything.
Yeah. Let me curve this bill a little more. Get into character. Yeah.
Can you give Connor a southern accent from now on?
Oh, right, I'm back to dialogue.
Yeah.
Oh, I can do that. Okay, go ahead.
We kept a close eye on our wounds or bruises, unsure of what they actually were. And if they could spread, we were relieved to say that they still hadn't. I'd like to say we discussed theories and possible reasons for why this was happening and why to us. But we were so afraid and exhausted by now that we barely said anything to each other. I'd spoken to my family on the phone earlier and had to pretend everything was okay, when deep down I wanted to cry into the receiver to my mother and ask her what to do. Anything we tried to find regarding the missing police officers who responded to the call that night online was met with old articles that coincidentally had some of the same keywords I used in my search. There was nothing on the news either. It was as if nothing had happened at all.
They're still in the universe. They're still in the mirror universe.
We arrived in Augusta a little after noon and turned from the main street to town into another narrow road that led to Rebecca's neighbourhood. We climbed up to the third floor and rung her bell, footsteps approaching the door a few moments later and stopping, presumably looking through the large peephole before she opened the door to greet us. What we saw in person was a woman slightly older than the one on the website, so I assumed the photo must have been taken some years ago.
Good afternoon. I assume you're Marielle and Connor.
The older woman, Southern too?
Well, yeah, she lives in Augusta, Georgia.
Okay.
Of course she is.
Okay.
I picture her being the most southern of all.
Okay, sure. She pushed the door open fully now and looked at me first, then at him.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having us, Miss Simmons. We're not sure who we can even turn to about this.
I quite like that accent.
I don't know why I can read better in a southern accent. But...
Connor nodded and then brought his head down slightly as if admitting defeat.
Nobody, hate to tell ya. You're not the first to come here about something like this, but you're probably the only ones to have.
She seemed hesitant to finish her sentence, but did so after a brief pause.
Survive. Wait, you're the only ones to have survive?
Should be like survive.
It's not just me. It's getting a little sloppy.
Yeah.
You're the only ones to have survived.
You're the only ones to have survived.
I survived too. She's just like completely insane.
It's giving just like textbook horror stuff. Like this is shit you'd see in like Scream Part like fucking 27.
I've got this old dusty Bible. You see, this is a curse laid in 1907.
Connor and I turned to meet our eyes and Rebecca invited us in, apologising for saying what she did and shut the door behind us once we'd entered. She went to make us coffee while we took our shoes and jackets off and made ourselves comfortable in our living room. And I tried taking some of the stress off by petting her puppy, a French bulldog that couldn't have been older than a few months.
They allow pets in this building? Fucking narc.
I tried.
Narc, ACAB alert. Narc.
Narc.
Fucking loser.
I tried initiating small talk when she came back to set a friendlier tone before we got to what we were really here for.
You can say that. Honestly, the owner is against animals of any kind in the apartments, but I convinced him how little trouble he'd cause and that if he broke or damaged anything, I'd pay it back in full. A cab. Isn't that right, Frankie?
In response, Frankie mustered up a semi-bark and licked her head as she went to pet his head, and then sat down on the opposite side of the sofa me and Connor were on a small cushioned chair.
I know who you are, Marielle.
I must admit, the phrase almost sent me into fight or flight, considering I've been on the edge, to say the least, for the past little over 2 days now, and was ready to jump up and run out of the apartment. But she continued just in time to allow me to prevent myself from doing so.
Your husband contacted me a year ago, trying to find out more about the mirror world and the creatures inhabiting it. I'm sorry to hear what happened and that you had to relive it, writing it in the email.
Interesting. Her mentioning my ex-husband's death was a gut punch, as I hadn't even started processing it over the weight of everything that's happened, and I stared blankly at her. Connor noticed and took over the conversation for me.
Did he mention anything we might need to know? Why he was trying to break into Marielle's home?
Rebecca took a sip from her coffee, which still had steam coming off of it, and switched her gaze to me, picking up Frankie off the floor when he jumped off as soon as I stopped petting him, obviously completely disinterested in me now, and set him in her lap.
Because he was afraid of exactly what's happening to you. I can't put this any other way, so I'll be forward about it. Russell did not seem exactly in his right mind, even back then. He was talking about all kinds of theories and supposed discoveries he'd made that sounded like the ravings of a madman. But what was evident to me was his duty to protect you from it, Marielle. I assume that's why he was there that night. There you go, you got it, you called it. You called it. Fuck.
But he was unlucky enough.
But he was unlucky enough to encounter something that only appeared to you, to be you. That only appeared to be you.
Both Connor and I were at a loss for words at how casually this woman seemed to be talking about this. As if it was an everyday occurrence that some body snatchers who apparently lived in your damn mirror or something like that took over your life, pretended to be you. But that didn't stop her from continuing.
Admittedly though, he was one of the few to have actually come to me with more than just claims of being there, being another version of them. With only just claims of there being another version of them. So what the hell are these things? Why are they targeting us?
Connor said, not even having touched his coffee yet. Not that I did either.
I don't know for sure how they choose their hosts, as I call them, but from what Russell and the others before and after him have told me, is that they form when you feel lost for an extended period of time in your life, like when a piece of you seems to be missing. Is that description accurate for you after your divorce, Marielle?
This is really starting to lose me.
How long has she been divorced?
I don't remember. I think a couple of years now. This is really starting to lose me.
Why is it all just... There was no exposition. It was all action, and now it's all exposition.
I know, let's explain exactly what's happening. Time and time again. I don't know. This is what I was worried about, right? I feel like it went on for like one chapter too much, right? See if it was three and it just ended with the black void stuff, that would have been great.
Or literally just if it ended with each of them with the separate doppelgangers thinking they were back in the real world.
Yeah, that would have been great.
That would have been really clever, and then it would have left you thinking about everything.
Again, it's like
I don't like
showing its hand too much.
I don't like this. I found a guy on the internet who knows everything.
Yeah, it just seems like such a massive trope right now. I don't know. I'm not honestly like. I feel like the rule of thumb with this stuff is what you reveal in any kind of story has to be more interesting than what the audience previously thought. That is not what is happening here. This is getting less and less interesting as it goes on. That they form because she got divorced. Like, I don't I don't know.
I don't love that.
And like, why was he interested in it in the first place then? Why was Russell interested in it in the first place? What kind of loss was he experiencing, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just seems like that's kind of come out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying about it seems like the author is writing this as he goes along? That's kind of what I'm getting at here.
Are they going to reveal some tragic thing that happened to him? I don't know.
See.
Whatever. Whatever.
Part of me was getting more and more furious at how confidently this woman was trying to gauge the low points in my life. But I could not bring myself to go against her when everything she'd been saying so far was correct. And it didn't help that she sounded so confident. Well, maybe it did. Because we were finally talking to someone who was not only believed us, but seemed experienced on the topic at hand.
It does. And I guess the same goes for Russell. He started talking about it all this month after his father passed. Reader, fucking idiot, in a tragic work accident. See, I explained that. I thought he was just taking the loss bad, but my God.
I took a moment to think everything through and allowed myself to finally take a sip from the coffee Rebecca had made me before continuing.
You said he had made some kind of discovery when... Oh, wait, that's her. I guess they're not that different. He said he made some kind of discovery when he come to you. What were you talking about? Well, I don't know if your husband had ever come into contact with any of them, but according to him, the only way to sever those things' connection to you was to destroy them in their own world. Too much! It's too much! I'll be honest, that I was up until very recently skeptical about its existence as a whole, considering no one had ever actually been to it, or at least done that and returned to tell the tale. But here you two are. So where did she hear about it? If she didn't have like a tragedy that opened it up to her, why did
I'm guessing she's like talked to other people who like have had, like I'm guessing other people have reached out to her the same as Marielle and Connor have.
But he's the very first person that she's met who's actually been there. So why was she posting about it if she never talked to someone?
I'm guessing she did have her own experience with it, but
guess.
she's just not been to like the other world. So
But she said that she was skeptical of it even existing until she met him.
I think she's talking about the other world. She was like, skeptical. She believed the mirror people existed, but she was like, skeptical about the other world. That's what I'm getting from
Separate things?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be honest that I was up until very recently skeptical about its existence as a whole, considering no one had actually ever been to it, or at least done that and returned to tell the tale, but here you two are, and you have evidence.
She held her hand up to her rib cage while also looking at my ankle, referring to the dark marks Connor and I had. I'm sure he felt as unnerved as I did at the mention of them.
And what do these markings mean, do you know?
Connor joined in.
My theory is that it's this other reality's way to manifest itself into our own. I can't tell you what that means or how dangerous it may be, but I hope nobody has to find out.
That doesn't make sense. No, like it doesn't literally make sense. If the markings are the only way for the creatures to manifest into the reality, then how come she got the call in the first place?
They're the only? My theory is that's this reality's way to manifest. Yeah.
You see what I mean? You see what I'm talking about here? It's
not quite tying together.
It's just not. It just doesn't. I don't know.
I don't want to be too harsh because like I don't want to. Maybe I'm missing something, but it doesn't seem like it ties together.
I don't know. I really feel like they're just over-explaining it.
I don't know.
And I feel like so many horror movies do this.
I feel like my bill needs to be curved even more.
Alright.
I gotta squeeze the blood out of my head.
She put Frankie back on the ground and he tried to get her attention again by scratching on her left leg for a second before making her sound like an angry toddler and curling up by her feet. Then Rebecca leaned on her knees and her eyes darted from Connor's to mine and back.
I know that this will sound like suicide, but you were already there once. You twice even, Connor, and you both managed to escape. In all my time following this phenomenon, I've not heard anyone or met anyone to have done that. I'd say that it's your decision if you wanted to do this. But with those marks you have, I'm not sure you have a choice in the matter. If you want to, stay. You must go back and destroy your imposters before they claim you.
Do you think she sounds weird?
She knows too much. Is she leading them back? Did they set up the fake internet stories and the shit that's too specific for her to lead them back?
Wondering.
Oh my god, are we gonna be back?
I feel like she. Wait, maybe this is a reach.
Are they doing a whoop-de-doop on the audience?
Maybe they are. I was gonna say that this is interesting because it feels like she's saying shit.
Bro, if they're doing like
incorrect.
a meta play on horror tropes,
that would be great.
Because they're like copies of things. They're copying shitty stories.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Oh man.
I don't have to explain how hard my stomach dropped as we were literally instructed to go back into that damned maze that took the form of my home. But at the same time, there was no other solution we could think of. And I'm sure it had been floating around Connor's head as much as it had been mine recently.
But how do we even go about doing it? We don't know what they are. How are we supposed to fight them?
My voice trembled at the mention of a confrontation with them.
We don't call them mirror people just because we came up with it randomly, Marielle. Fucking idiot. You came out of that world through your mirror. You see how they're trying to become you slowly, so...
Rebecca stood up and walked over to one of the walls of the apartment that had a large rectangular mirror on it.
My guess is that attacking them with glass will be effective in hurting and potentially killing them. Your guess?
Connor stood up and I felt the disbelief in his words as if they were my own.
You're telling us to enter whatever that place is again, most likely walking straight into our death, or God knows, maybe something even worse. And all you have to go off of is your guess.
She turned back to face him, seemingly unaffected by his demeanor, and crossed her arms before speaking.
Like I said, I've never encountered one of them myself, and I'm only going off of what I've heard by people I've spoken to in person and through my forum. See, she's never encountered it herself. So the guy was the first. None of this makes any sense.
No, it doesn't.
The only way the story redeems itself is if this is an illusion.
I don't know, it feels like it's too obviously. Now like I'm noticing all the mistakes.
Why on earth would she know about this at all if he was the first time she ever believed it?
Why create the forms in the first place? Why believe
she didn't
it in the
believe
first place? Yeah, exactly.
Who would she have heard from? If none of them actually went, why would she? No. If none of them actually went and had real stories, then his shit wouldn't line up with hers.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. If it makes you feel better, I am more than willing to come with you. I've been investigating this for far too long, and I want to be able to help others in your situation if they ever come to find me. So you're saying this isn't just happening to me? It's a whole phenomenon? When was the first time something like this happened? I can't tell you first. This is the same fucking voice.
I was about to say they sound identical.
It's all blending together so badly.
Well, just don't give Marielle a southern accent.
I can't tell you for sure, Marielle.
Rebecca shrugged, and now her whole body turned to face us, and Connor shook his head while sitting down, but remained silent.
But you are not the only one being haunted by yourself. You might realize now, though, why it's not a widespread threat. People who look for help from those not familiar with it end up ostracized and thrown in mental hospitals.
We stayed at Rebecca's apartment for another hour and a half, going through Connor and my experience in the mirror world, and then getting ready to leave and drive back to my house. It sounds just as insane as it did then, typing this out. Our conversation on the drive back, with Connor in the driver's seat this time, was mostly filler silence. As much as I didn't want to admit it because she was still helping us, Rebecca was not a great person to be around, and I can see why she'd be doing this. And I can see why she'd be doing something so out of the ordinary, considering how apathetic she seemed to people's emotions. And the second thing I was looking forward to the most after freeing myself of the other me's torment was not having to spend another second with her.
I think it meant to be...
Sorry.
No, I think it's a typo. Oh. I think it's, and I can't see why she'd be doing something.
I can't see.
That makes more sense, right?
Yeah. After she gave us some more information and theories about what we have to do, we came to the conclusion that we had to get rid of mine and Connor's double in order to sever our link to this other reality, or dimension, or however you want to call it. We decided that we would do our best to destroy those of the two policemen who disappeared in response to the call if we found them. And I'm sorry if this makes me sound like a bad person, but I was not ready to spend more time in that hell of a place trying to save someone I did not know. And I just wanted it to be over already. And I think Rebecca was the only one, despite all her supposed experience, failed to recognise that we were literally about to enter another dimension to fight beings that were nothing close to human, when she urged us to make it our goal to find them as well. Arriving at my driveway was just as chilling as before, the eeriness amplified by the police car still outside. On our way, we passed by a store to buy a medium-sized mirror that we broke in order to arm ourselves with shards of glass. An idea suggested by Rebecca that I was not sure how it made me feel when you take into account the superstitions around the bad luck that will follow you when you break a mirror. She seemed not to care and was more than happy to shatter it without a second shot.
A second shot?
A second thought. A second of course, getting herself the longest and sharpest piece she could find and leaving us with the shorter ones.
Fucking size queen over here.
Interesting. I feel like she's gonna be like a doppelganger, Rebecca. We explained to Rebecca that going up into the attic is what sent both Connor and I into the other world, and he was the first to go up the ladder, then Rebecca, and finally myself. All three of us commented on the sudden chill and cold of the attic, and then slowly descended back into the hallway to find nothing out of the ordinary until the first time a room repeated. But what was stranger than usual was how the distortions appeared almost instantaneously, with floating or half-missing furniture, misplaced windows and the like.
I can't believe I'm actually seeing this myself.
For a change, this time Rebecca sounded like the one completely lost in the situation. I don't know about Connor, but it made me feel more in control, like I knew what to expect. Of course I didn't.
Okay, listen to me.
I tried to sound as confident as I could to grab their attention.
I have an idea. We can walk all we want and expect to find one of those things, or we can draw them to us. While I was here, when I made a noise, they came almost instantly, so let's devise a plan.
Would they not be coming already then?
Why wouldn't they come up with this outside?
I was gonna say, would they not already be coming at them if they were talking? Anyway.
And they didn't come when they made noise the first time.
Yeah, you're right. Well, they weren't together.
They were talking and then they said... He talked to the old man and nobody came?
Oh yeah, no, somebody did come.
Oh.
Well, when he's talking to Marielle's husband.
Right.
That is, yeah.
The Marielle came.
Yeah.
Right.
I looked around the room we were currently in. It was the kitchen, a perfect place for an ambush. I'd stay behind the counter by the window, looking towards the doorway, on the either side of which Connor and Rebecca would wait, with glass shards in their hand to stab them into whatever creature came first. They agreed to the plan and took their positions while I looked into one of the shelves floating in the middle of the air, inside of which were small glass cups, not behind on defying the laws of physics, my bad. Looking back at the others and raising the cup in the air, they nodded in approval and I took a deep breath and braced myself. Squeezing the shard in the other hand before I dropped the glass, I noticed the mark on my hand, which seemed to have grown to almost consuming my entire palm. We had to get this done, or who knows what would follow us. I simulated a pained yell as I threw the glass onto the floor, and seconds later, the all too familiar static and distant voices started storming towards the kitchen from the other room. Turning the corner was a man in a police uniform. I assume one of the two that were unlucky enough to be sent as the responders the night I got the call. It took all the strength in me not to flinch, as it's what were up until now stiff movements turned into a feral sprint, accompanied by a reverberating inhuman growl. The moment that thing appeared through the doorway, Connor and Rebecca were swift to stab their shards into its body. Connor managed to slice into its abdomen, while Rebecca jammed her straight into its right eye. Moments later, the awful sound it somehow produced was a cut off like a TV turning off, and it began cracking until eventually shattering into pieces that littered the floor. Great visuals again. Love
Yeah.
these visuals. The three of us looked at each other in disbelief. We just killed one of those things, and without it even being able to reach us, for the first time, I felt strong, triumphant, like I was going to be the one that they should be afraid of. That was short-lived. The only form of celebration we were able to have was momentary looks of widened eyes and smiles before the sounds returned. The footsteps, the screaming, the static. So many sets of footsteps. So much static. Rebecca gasped, and Connor held his free hand up to his ear and shut his eyes tight while I backed away from the counter. In that moment of fear, I forgot about the broken window. Before I could see who was about to come through the door, I was pulled back by my hair so hard that for a second I thought my scalp was about to rip. I could only keep myself on my feet for less than 2 seconds, calling out for help before my spine slammed against the bottom frame of the window, and I went limp just long enough to be pulled into the bedroom I was looking into and thrown across half its length, rolling across the floor. I could hear the commotion in the kitchen the whole time. Rebecca screamed while Connor was silent, but I could hear objects being thrown into walls and an occasional grunt that I assumed came from him. I did my best to stand up as quickly as possible, and that's when I realised my glass shard was gone. Likely I dropped it when I was grabbed. I opened my eyes to instantly be met with the sight of the other Marielle standing a few feet from me with her mouth opened impossibly, revealing her entire bottom row of teeth, but no tongue. And her eyes, 2 different colours, just like Connor had told me. She produced the same horrifying scream, but it wasn't mixed with any static. Sounded exactly like me, but as if I was being brutally torn apart, like I was being tortured in the most awful ways possible. Looking around the bedroom, I realised there was nothing I could use as a weapon, and by the time I did, the other Marielle had started her charge at me again, and I screamed, barely managing to slip past her and throw myself onto the bed. I reached for the pillow, and though horrified, panicked inhales and exhales, I threw it against her, which, as you may have imagined, was not a very effective weapon, and I crawled back, gasping as I fell over at the other side. Standing up as fast as I could, I was met with the awful sight of her crawling onto the bed like a spider, but that was not what disturbed me most. Her head, mouth was still hanging open so painfully, and eyes empty like a dark abyss. Her head was throwing itself into impossible angles, just like that thing pretended to be Connor had been doing while I was hiding. I tried to make my way to the other corner of the room, but she pounced on me. Pinning me into the ground with inhuman strength, she gripped my neck and lifted me up, slamming me into the wall, and as I looked into her, parts of her skin started growing back.
Going black.
Going black. Not growing back, sorry. While I was running, I heard the sound of glass shattering through the window. When the other Marielle had me pinned, I heard Connor shouting and a chair suddenly hit my double and it released its grip on me. That moment allowed me to look into the kitchen and see Connor being attacked by its double and disappearing out of sight. And Rebecca was held against the wall by another creature in the skin of a police officer. But her hands were raised and she was holding her glass shard still. All she was able to do was drive it into its head and she would have freed herself. But the thing was too fast and stopped her arm mid-air with its own, squeezing so hard it caused her to drop the shard and scream in pain. All of this happening in less than a second, and it dropped her arm and put its palm against her mouth. What I witnessed after that was the total disappearance of that thing's everything. It was just a totally black silhouette that resembled a human, with impossibly uneven proportions, constantly swapping, but the only thing that stayed consistent was the arm which it held onto Rebecca's mouth. Its palm then moved from just covering her mouth to grabbing her entire head, and she let out a guttural scream that only got louder and louder as it tightened its grip. I couldn't see anything anymore, as I still had the other me to deal with. But looking into the kitchen, an idea came to me. I could lure this Marielle towards the window and use its pieces of glass to shatter her. And that's what I did. I sprinted as fast as I could to the window and tucked back to see she was already running for me. Her hands were out trying to grab me, and I ducked right before she was able to and moved to the right, causing her to ram in front of the window and into its frames. It was now or never. I turned around and gathered all the strength I had to grab the other Marielle's head and slam it into the sharp piece of glass pointing right up. She was able to release one final shriek before it pierced into her left eye, and she stood there frozen and silent. At that moment, I looked up to see what was happening in the kitchen, and I saw Rebecca had completely disappeared, while Connor was still in a tussle with his double. I was just about to crawl through the window back to help before I was forced down on the ground by an awful, throbbing pain in my ankle, hand, and now neck, where the other Marielle had held me. But the pain was soon to disappear, and I looked back towards the window where my double was beginning to crack, and I called out for Connor one last time before she returned to pieces, and my memories end there. What I remember immediately after was waking up in a hospital bed with an IV going into my left hand, and I was covered by a sheet. I was so exhausted I could barely produce any sound that alerted a visitor I did not know I had sitting on my chair by the bed.
Easy, Marielle.
The voice was that of a woman, and it would have certainly made me scream if I had the strength for it.
You've been out the longest of us three.
I slowly turned my head to see Rebecca smiling at me with this expression that had something off about it, but I chalked it up to my condition.
Rebecca, what happened? We did what we had to do is what happened, but you were completely out of it when we came out.
I was too worried about Connor to ask what she meant by came out. I was definitely in need of a memory refresher.
Where is Connor? Is he okay? Oh yes, honey. Don't worry about him. He's in a neighboring room. You two had a real struggle in there.
She then stood up, and at that moment I could not remember how she had suddenly disappeared while we were in that place. She had made her way to the door and opened it, stepping out.
You'll have to ask the nurses if you can see him, though. Wait, Rebecca! I called
out weakly.
Sorry. How did we... Is it over? I'll tell you later, Marielle. Visiting time is over and I need to feed Toby. You know, he's probably starving by now. You know how much Frenchies eat.
Interesting. Well, clearly it's a fake. Before I could question her more, she shut the door and I was left alone. For the first time, completely alone and separate from Connor since he offered me his help. I was afraid for him and I wanted to see him, but at least I had Rebecca's word that he was okay. I moved the covers to look at my hand and ankle. The parts where I had been marked were completely covered in bandages and I had no idea what was under there. And when I ran my hand over the front of my neck, I confirmed that the case was the same with it too. I wasn't sure if they'd remained like that. I had a lot of explaining to do and I wasn't sure how I was going to go about it, but I had the chance to finally rest and I wasn't about to say no to it. Not long after, a male nurse entered my room with a tray of food and smelled under his mask.
Hello, miss. I was told you were awake. You were in quite the condition when we got you. It was a stroke of luck. Your neighbors saw you before you lost too much blood. Blood? What happened to me?
I recalled the black marks again and ran my hand over the bandages on my neck.
You had some really deep wounds where the bandages are, and your neighbor's son saw you passed out on the driveway. I don't know what my voice is. Bleeding. Poor kid, but he saved your life. Is Connor here? Can I see him? He was with me.
The nurse looked at me confused and scratched his head.
Ma'am, there was no one with you. We don't have a patient by that name in the ward.
I raised my eyebrows and felt myself begin to tense.
That's impossible. He was with me. Check again, please. I was with two other people, that lady and Connor. Please check again. Okay, ma'am. Just don't stress out, please. You really need to rest yourself and keep steady. I'll be back in just a few moments.
He smiled and nodded at me before turning around and leaving the room, but I was too nervous for pleasantries right now. I started to wonder why Rebecca was in such a rush, why she'd lie about Connor if he wasn't here. I'd remembered by now how suddenly she went missing while I was still inside that place, and I thought that just like how I'd returned to the real world after I killed the other me, the same thing must have happened to her. But there wasn't another her, right? That's when I replayed our conversation over a few times in my head before she left, and I kept stopping at one detail in particular. Was I misremembering it, or did she get the name of her dog wrong?
Yeah. What?
That was I felt like that was very obvious, you know? That's not like the rest of the ending. I don't know. I personally wasn't a fan of...
The second half was just so rushed. It's like even coming back to the house, everything happened. Boom, 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 boom. Get up, move on. It's like...
Here's the question. Do you think she's still in the universe?
Yeah, I think that's the implication.
Yeah.
But like... I don't know.
I feel like there's so much that doesn't make sense here.
What did the old lady really add to the story?
Nothing really. I feel like they could have like...
She just showed up, came back with them?
I feel like, so they realize it was Marielle's husband and like they go to like his house and find his like journal or something.
Sure.
That would have given the same amount of like exposition.
Maybe they retrieve his laptop from the house.
Exactly. Like that would have been... I feel like that would have added just as much. They didn't need a third character here. I felt like the Connor Marielle duo was pretty good. They had a good rapport. They had
it's the fact that she comes out of nowhere, she exposits and then she's gone.
Yeah.
It's like she didn't really do anything. She didn't
I
need to
really
be there.
felt like she was gonna have a twist, like she was gonna already be a mirror person or something.
I really liked our like meta idea we had.
Yeah, that would have been great. Like I don't know. I just feel like...
But then was she at one point, was the original her that they met real?
I think so.
Or was she like, is that why she knew all this stuff, is because she was friends with her ex-husband and had been there before? She lied about having been there.
I honestly don't know. I just feel like, I don't know.
There's a hyperlink on Dog Wrong. Does that go to something else or is it just to the old story to remind you?
Let me see. Story compilation, yeah.
Hello, thank you for taking the time to read my story. Well, I assume that's how you stumbled on my profile anyway. I'll be using this post to list everything I've posted in r/nosleep. We'll be updating, blah, 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 blah. Hope you enjoy. Feel free to write what you did or did not like. I love listening to feedback. Oh, well, we got some feedback.
That's interesting. I would like to, like, I feel like the setup of the story, amazing.
Yeah.
The visuals in the story still, even towards the end, a lot of the gore elements.
I loved
really good.
Like 70% of this. I really did. It's just it suffers from some pacing issues, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't love the exposition, but there's a world where that could have worked. There's other stories where that does work. I just don't know if it was right for this one, and I feel like even in this one it was rushed.
I don't know if there's any stories where that kind of exposition works, to be honest. I can't think of any, especially horror stories. I can't think of any examples where that kind of exposition does work. I feel like that's what really, really is the point where most of these stories start to go downhill. Time and time again, it's too much is being said.
Well, if it tied into everything, you know, like if there were hints throughout the story and this explained it all, that could work. But when it's just out of nowhere, she just explains things that we would have never been able to guess.
Any kind of horror, I would much rather know too little than too much.
Oh, for sure. Agreed.
I just feel like it's...
That's why the first half was so damn strong.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also just feel like it was a little better written, but that could be just subjective on my part.
No, I think it was written about the same. I think just the actual points were, we just like the points left. So
I feel like pacing and sentence structure, like everything in the house was like described so uniquely. It was like, holy shit, this is happening, this is happening. Yeah. Whereas at the end it was like, she's running at her, she's being attacked, she's blacked out, she's here. Yeah. It's like...
I felt like a lot of the action scenes, so to say, especially at the end, there's too many of them.
Definitely a little,
Yeah, like that's another thing. Like I feel like...
It wasn't an action story, I don't feel like.
No, it wasn't. Even at the start when like a lot of shit was going on.
The scariest thing in it to me was when she's behind the counter and the radio voice is just out of sight. She doesn't even see it. I think that's the best part.
I think the scariest part of the story for me is at the end of the second chapter, where like they reveal that, you know, like Connor's still in the universe. I think that the idea of being like trapped in a universe like that constantly, you don't know the lines between being in the universe and being out of it are so blurred like that.
No, I'm with you there,
I feel like that is
yeah.
the scariest part of it. The idea of being completely trapped so that you can never completely know if you're free.
They just should have played with that more. I think if I were to like suggest a rewrite for it, I think the first time that they escape, they take like a long time to regroup and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Like they happen upon information, maybe they keep in touch, maybe they just live normal lives to the best of their ability.
Sure.
And communicate with each other.
Yeah.
And then they realize after a while of developing that they have to go back. And the reason isn't because some lady told them to.
Maybe it's that they each have a mark and then they think it's not developing. But
and it gets worse and worse.
It does actually start
It starts affecting them.
Yeah.
Like they're like
maybe they start blacking out and they start not remembering certain things, you know, like
they start like puking, maybe their limb twitches.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that would be a much better idea. I don't know.
And then they go in like prepared. It's not just like this lady told us to go and we bought a mirror and broke it.
So the OP says in a comment as well, while I wanted there to be some ambiguity at the end, it wasn't initially my plan to finish it like I did. Sorry. And I didn't want to make it any longer because at the point it had just felt like I was milking the attention it was getting.
Oh.
Sorry.
So you kind of just wrapped it up with a bow so as not to like seem ostentatious or whatever. Oh, bro, fucking just go all out. You can make this 10 parts. I'd still read the whole thing.
I feel like it would have been much better if he went with his original idea, but that's just me.
This could have been a 10-part. Honestly, don't let this stop you. Like, write your original vision. I want to read it because the first half was brilliant. Like 10 out of 10 storytelling. 10 out of 10. And if you had an original story that you wanted to write, please God write it, and I want to read it. I want to read it here if you want us to.
Yes.
So good. So good. You okay?
Sorry, I'm dying.
Are the mirror people getting you? Oh no.
I have a dog hair in my throat.
Oh no.
The mirror people put it there.
Not the dog hair.
Yeah. I think this would have actually been much better if it was longer. I felt like there was too much in too short of a space.
Yeah.
Especially the back half of 3.
Yeah.
The back half of 3 and like all the 4.
Definitely the weakest part.
I didn't like so much. But I feel like that's also I have a similar opinion about a lot of horror pieces. Like it suffers from the similar issues that I see a lot of horror pieces have.
But I also don't want to dog on this because that first half really
It was
brilliant.
amazing.
It was brilliant.
No.
And I want to see more of this and I want to see like everything this guy writes. It's great.
Overall, even if I didn't if I had to rate this story, it would still be a good 7 out of 10.
Just don't compromise your vision. You're not milking it. People loved it. It's great.
No, absolutely not. I think
I loved it.
I think you definitely. I don't know. I definitely feel like it should have been longer. It should have been stuck to that original plan more. Because if the original plan there was what that first 60% was, that would have been amazing. Like, I really liked it. And the thing is as well, I like their writing style. I like the writing style a lot. They have a lot of really good elements there, and I think they should just keep going at it. They should definitely not try to rush anything or whatever.
Right.
You know, this is r/no sleep. There's no deadlines here. You know, it's here for a reason.
Even if you're afraid of milking it, just honestly write the first half, leave it on a cliffhanger for a while.
Yeah.
Let people get excited about you coming back if that's what you're worried about.
I noticed the person that wrote this, I think they wrote it within the span of like start to end in the span of 2 weeks.
Dude, I wish I could do that. Just ram a sheet of coke up my nose and just write 10 stories back to back.
Oh, I wish I could do that too. I don't have the patience for it. I used to write a lot of fan fiction when I was younger, and I could do that. I could write 10 chapters back to back in the span of
I never could, even when I was little. Even when I was little and writing dog shit, I'd still take a month to write a chapter.
I used to have it, and then I stopped. But then, I don't know. I think I'd love to try my hand at writing something like this.
I've been thinking that too. It looks so fun. It's you can play with so much, and there's no expectations, and
sure.
I don't know, it seems like a great way to get your stuff out there. It's these have been so inspirational. I've been so excited about stories again.
I think next time we do this, I have some more stories planned. So we'll probably do another grab bag episode, I think. Sure. I've got some various stories picked out. So we'll do 3 shorter ones, I think. I think I'll work them out. And then maybe the episode after that we'll do a longer single story.
Hell yeah.
Which I have another one planned. I really hope OG CreepCast doesn't cover it before we get to it. I really hope they don't.
That would be so brutal. We'll see. We'll see.
I know.
What do you mean OG CreepCast? What is that?
OG
Who are
CreepCast?
those people? I've only ever heard of Dumb CreepCast.
You've only ever heard of Dumb CreepCast?
The original epic show known as Dumb CreepCast that is in no way affiliated with anybody else whatsoever.
What does your hat say? Cropo Coastal?
It says I'm a redneck because of this bill here. It says I'm a southern boy. A southern boy.
A little
from those
southern
United
boy from a little
States.
southern village.
Trump's goddamn America. Let's not. Alright. Love you guys so much. Anything else you want to say? We done? We signing off?
Yeah.
Alright.
That's it. I'm done.
Bye!
I don't have anything else to say here.
I gotta go piss so bad.
Okay.
That's a good response, buddy. Alright.